Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing, the podcast for and with manufacturing leaders. I'm Mike and this is Trevor. We want you to join us on our journey as we help you gain new insights, moments of clarity, and self-awareness.
Hey, if you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone and uncover new perspectives to make your next day better, grab your coffee and let's go. Welcome to part 2 with Horst and Scott. If you missed the last episode 14,
I can always say, but if you have a small plant, let's go a smaller scale. If you have a small plant, because many of your listeners are probably managers of smaller plants, and you're saying is, well, I'm in trouble, I'm running behind, I have no money, I have enough problems, I cannot focus on training, right? I know it's, but what do? Do something small. There's no problem for you. I'm sure you can add 3 apprentices or send some of your key guys, talented people to some type of training, what is available. There's plenty of training programs available now somewhere to learn more, or send them to another plant if you have a plant within a corporation. If there are other plants, well, send your people to the other plants to learn how they do it if they do it better, right? Interchange those things, interchange the knowledge, learn from each other. That most of that costs a little bit money, but not that much. And you will have huge gains if you do that.
You just have to fuel the fire, right, Horst?
You fuel the fire. That was our slogan. That's right. You fuel the fire so that everybody moves in a high gear, high speed to where you want to go, excited and motivated. I think that's also a key thing the leaders need to do. You need to motivate and motivate your people to get there.
To spend that time and invest into your people that you have today.
Yeah, that's right on. As a leader, you do need to recognize that, right? You have to do everything possible to keep your people and make them motivated and give them the skills. You have to equip them so they can do their job. Really, that's really what you need to do. You can't be a spreadsheet manager just looking at charts and demanding those results from the people. Saying is, I look at those numbers, they are not right, and all those things, right? But not helping them to get there. That's not going to help anybody. And then firing those people and then hiring somebody else, then the next person, you have the same issue if you're a manager like that. You need to be an inspired manager, working with building your team. And that works. That's really working.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about urgency in manufacturing, and for me, that was kind of an adrenaline rush. I like the feel of the urgency on the shop floor. But then when you talk about developing people, you got to have patience. So those two at times can be conflicting to some of the leaders. It's not an easy recipe to get that balance and grow, that's for sure.
Yeah, I cannot promise anybody that it's easy.
No.
No. If you think you want to have an easy job, I don't know what you need to do. You need to go somewhere else, But in manufacturing, as a leader, a manager, it's not easy. It's challenging, but it's very rewarding.
So for both you and for you, Horst and Scott, you guys obviously grew your careers to a very high position of influence. Great job on growing divisions financially and good support. As you progress through your career and you get to those levels, how did you guys manage your egos? Because we know people in similar positions that have a hard time doing those things. Just curious for the listeners to provide some insight. How'd you do that? What were the ways?
Well, Horst managed mine.
And Scott managed mine, so that's how we did it.
There you go. Well, that's a recipe for sure then.
But I do think we helped each other keep it in check, right? I mean, more than once I had to, keep Horst on check and, hey, what are you thinking here? He and I had he had a lot of frank discussions with me too, don't get me wrong, But more than once, even though he was my boss, I had to and I had to do it at the right time and in the right way, and respect his position and respect that he had other stresses on him. But more than once, Horst, you and I had to sit down and have a heart-to-heart, and I had to kick you in the butt a couple of times gently.
Yeah, you did, and I was very thankful. I'm still thankful about those times, Scott. It goes back to the relationship we had, right? It was like a trust from each other, respect, and knowing that we both have skills and we both, if we work together very close, we can move mountains. And I think we did. And I remember when I was very stressed, like every manager, right? You have situations where you're very stressed and frustrated. And so Scott told me, hey, Horst, drink some ice cubes, take ice cubes. He said, cool down. I still think about that. So when I get angry now, sometimes I still think about Scott, I have to take ice cubes now. It's great, right? It's like you need to, if you want to really have a beneficial team that way, right? The relationship, then that's what it's necessary. Honesty and stuff, whatever it is, you need to say it. That's important.
We see that you guys get along well, and obviously great things happen. One of the things that we see is a leader really gets focused on their mission, and they just don't have any awareness of others, and that they're not buying in or they're not accepting, and they're just going to hammer through it. So what's an example? We got you two on here today, and there had to have been instances where you weren't on the same page, but how did you pick up on each other and not just plow through it? And you talked about that honesty and opening it up. And what advice would you have for a listener based on your experiences between you two?
Yeah, it's I can't even say. Did I get red in my head or so, Scott, when I got really angry?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Why don't I jump in on that one? I think a lot of it is around empathy. Me kind of observing you, and you were empathetic towards my situation when I was stressed and what have you. But I tell you a story we had, and I think we shared it with you, that you didn't get angry very much, but when you did, it was pretty clear, and we knew it was coming. It was like that long fuse on the dynamite. We could see the fuse being lit, and we were just hoping to get it before it got down to the big thing, the business end at the bottom. But we used to say that you used to lose your lips. And when you got really angry, and I think I only saw it 4 or 5 times in 25 years, but when that happened, it's time just to sit back and listen and learn from where we went astray. Like I say, that was a physical cue, but and as I say, it didn't happen very much, fortunately, but it was always kind of there in the background. It's like, you don't want Horst losing his lips. We would talk about and joke about that as a team, right? And then we'd say, okay, let's refocus, and what do we got to do here? So that was always a cue to us.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I remember that. People are saying that. I apparently still do that sometimes when I get angry. Some people remind me of that story. But yeah, those are maybe clues you can see. But it goes back to that. You need to, as leaders, need to really look around, right? How your team is reacting, and what is the stress level of everybody. And it's a job as a leader to see those signs. It's a job as a team member to help also your boss when he loses his lips or when he's getting angry or getting a little bit off balance. A team is complementing each other. So, of course, it depends on how the leader has his. If he's a dictator, it's very hard to try to correct the dictator with anything he does wrong or gets off track. But if he's a open-minded, mindfulness leader, then it's possible. You have the responsibility to talk to him and saying, "Hey, maybe look at that again, or come down a little bit and let's take a break about that and think about it again." That's a key thing to do if you want to have a collaborative environment, and you benefit from it because you don't run into trouble. We always use that story about if you see somebody getting in a car and driving towards a cliff, do you let that person drive off the cliff, or do you try to get him out of the car? You say, well, no. I'll try to get him out of the car and convince him not to drive off the cliff. It's crazy if he does that. Well, some people don't know they're driving towards a cliff. You need to tell him, hey, you're driving towards the cliff. You get off the cliff. That's it. And if not, you try to pull him out. And my ending is always, if somebody still wants to drive off, well, then you need to let him drive off. He needs to learn the hard way. But it's your everybody's responsibility to make sure nobody drives off the cliff.
As a learning opportunity, is there anything you want to provide to the listeners that, you would do differently? Maybe there's a mistake made and say, within leadership, I would do something different.
Yeah, if you say, what would I change? How would I approach things differently today than I did during my career? I would say I wouldn't change too much how we manage to lead the people in the approach we had, as I described earlier in this podcast. The reason why I said it is because even now there's different ways of different teachings, or not really. That's my point. There's not really different teachings today about great leadership methodologies. There's one called Agile. This is now the new buzz word and the new, approach. What people say, that's the leadership style you need to have, or the approach, the methodology you should have, was developed by a software company. And when I compare these 12 principles of Agiles, what they have, and some of those details, it's pretty close how we worked. It's pretty close how our way was. So I think we worked that way 10 years ago. We should have maybe formalized it and sold it as a methodology in how to do leadership at that time. Absolutely. I think we were right on. And so I can't really say to change that. Maybe one thing I would focus more is in the area of alignment, that different levels are aligned even more so. And alignment means you as a leader with all your subordinates and different levels to the first level of this organizational structure, but also alignments to your boss and your boss's boss and whatever you have in your structure. Eventually, if you're the owner of a company, or you're the head or president of a public company, you need to be aligned with your shareholders, right? Because that's basically the ownership. So if you're not aligned with your boss or the owners, then you eventually will run into trouble, And the same thing is if you're not aligned, if a supervisor is not aligned with his department manager, the supervisor will run into trouble, and so on. And that this applies for everybody. So I think that's one thing I would focus on that. And work-life balance. I was very much into work only and didn't have a balance. I think Scott was way better than me on the work-life balance. No, he for sure was. He should tell about that. What to do better on that one. He can tell you that better than I do.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Horst. In terms of work-life balance, I mean, that's a tough one. And And I know it's a very personal thing, and I do feel a little bit sorry there for you. But, just so you know, you were really good to us about that. We didn't really notice that. I mean, whenever we had issues, whenever we had, personal issues or work-life balance issues, you were always good at giving us the time, encouraging us to get away and do what we need to do. So, for what it's worth, we never really had an issue there in terms of, how you treated us with your work-life balance.
Well, that's nice to hear, Scott. I'm glad you feel that way. I still think people need to really think about what is important for them. What is important for you? That is so important. What is important for you in life? And of course, you need to earn money. You need to have fun what you're doing. And all those things, but what is really important for you? What makes you happy? It's like the Dalai Lama once said, the purpose of life is happiness. So you should ask, are you happy? Are you happy what you are doing? If you're not, you better change it. Because this is right now important, right? It's your life. So, and I think work, family, private, sports, interests, whatever you feel is fun for you and what makes you happy, that's really what you should consider. And you need to make sure you have a big share of your life spending on that part, what makes you happy.
Yeah, taking the time. We don't take the time to do that, right? We're busy, we're running around, we've got pressures at work, pressures at home, maybe financial pressures. But you're right, Horst. You have to take that time, whether it's once a year, every couple of months, whatever your cadence is, to really take stock of that.
Yeah, it's you have to review things. There are many ways of working to find out what is important for you, right? You can do meditations, you can go to certain retreats, you go to a pilgrimage. You come to pilgrimage with my daughter's business. Whatever. There's many options out there.
Yeah, I remember you were able to bring that in very early for us, Horst, and Brian Scarrett we had on as a previous guest, and that was some of the basis of our whole training. Launching a new plant was, how do we manage the work and the life at the same time? And definitely some things that I didn't appreciate as much then, but when we look at the importance that we're putting more on happiness, employee engagement, how do you get better output by simply tapping into what drives people? And that definitely was very helpful for us then.
I think the younger generation has that figured out better than we did.
I think you're right, Scott. The younger generations, they know that way better how to do that. By the way, Brian was a great mentor and very respected. His teachings was really helpful. Well, we didn't listen enough, some of it, but that's the only problem. Sometimes you know what to do and you don't do it. So change that. Do what you know is the right thing to do. That's very important, I think.
One other thing that we see a lot, Horst, is people focused on many different things that's right in front of them. And the big, hairy, audacious goal and keeping on track on what's important, that seemed to be part of your mantra.
Yeah, you have to set big goals. And when you do that, you will be on the way. It's what you believe in it. It's just in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. If all those things work together, you can achieve it. You just have to firmly focus on it and work on it.
Yeah, I was one that liked to just go fast and attack what was in front of me. You had a good saying around that.
Oh yeah. They go slow to go fast. They go slow to go fast. Sometimes you need to slow down. You need to think about it and and what you're doing, and consciously making the right decisions in order to progress. I know it's difficult when you are in this rat race. You are trying to to catch up, to run after this problem and that problem, and it comes from everywhere. But maybe that would be the time to step back a little bit and give it a little bit time, and then rethink it, and then make a decision to go ahead. Even when there's a problem, some people are very impulsive, reacting. Most of the time you don't need to react right away. Take your time a little bit to rethink the issue, get all the facts together, and then make the move. And I called it many times, you have to go slow to go fast. And that's really, I think it would benefit you.
I know it really stuck with us when we heard that in our plant. And speaking from personal experience, manufacturing, and for the listeners that are out there, it definitely is a very high-paced environment. But I can remember a story where I had a leader, because we were promoting go slow to go fast, your vision, and we really, really lived it to the best of our ability. But I can remember a leader that I worked with, a peer, said to me, "Are you bringing water or gas to the fire, Mike?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? We got work to do." And he's like, "No, you got to step back for a second." And we really got into that vision of go slow to go fast, and understanding when you had to be really self-aware of things and say, you know what? Yeah, quality's out of control. Their production numbers are not where they need to be. You're not doing any better by running quicker. So it really stuck with us. And for the listeners, when you think of self-awareness, especially in manufacturing, because it's hard, the demands are even heavier today than they were, 10, 20 years ago, but it works. And we always appreciated that, Horst. I mean, it's something that gave us vision and purpose to really look at. First, I didn't understand. I'm like, what the heck is this guy talking about? We said, what's that mean? And then finally, we all just really understood and grabbed onto it. So it works. Definitely appreciate that.
It is a good formula. And I think, manufacturing is very challenging, but it really applies for any business. Yes. It doesn't matter what business you have. And,
you're right.
And even your personal life. When there's a problem, don't react right away. Step back a little bit and take your time to make the right decision. It's a basic principle applicable for many applications, basically.
Yeah, I just used it with my daughter last week. She's 18. She looked at me like I had two heads growing out of my neck, but she's starting to understand it better.
Yeah, I think if you have teenagers at home, definitely, I think it's a good way of go slow to go fast with them.
Absolutely.
And definitely on the manufacturing side, in some cases, it's encouraged that you look like you're going fast. So that makes it even tougher to go slow, is that a lot of bosses and others, they want to see activity. They want to see you going to the fires. And like you say, Mike, it's great. You're bringing a bucket, you look good, and the boss walks away and you throw it on the fire. And of course, oops, it might not have been water.
Made the matter worse in most cases. And you're onto something there, Scott. I mean, when you're young in your career and you want to progress through into different levels of leadership, sometimes you want to bury in the hours and not think about the home life and try to impress the boss. And sometimes that's promoted, or that type of environment is welcomed, that atmosphere, but it doesn't work well in the long run of things. It definitely needs to go slow to go fast is what really works best.
On another topic, which we could have a whole other podcast, but I feel it's important. We had some great feedback of getting you guys on, and the three-legged stool really helped a lot of us with this whole mindfulness. And we didn't call it that then, but what do you focus on, and what do you want? Do you want to focus on this, or do you want to focus on that? And talk about that a little bit. Like, how was that stool brought up? And Mike and I know how we benefited, but how was that created, and how did that drive this whole culture?
Well, this three-legged stool, that's an analogy of what is important in a business. What does your business make you successful? What part of the business? What do you need to focus on in order to have a successful business? And we use the analogy of a three-legged stool with three legs, and saying is there are three parts of your business which are very important. The one thing is the customer, because without the customer, you have no business. Very, very logical.
Yeah.
And the customer would argue, you are the most important, the only thing. If you don't have me, you won't have a business, right? But there's another part, the other leg, or how we called it, was the part of the investors. It's like the investors would say, or the business owner would say, well, the only thing what counts for me is making money. You make money or you don't. If you don't make money, nothing else matters. Well, he's of course right too. But there is another leg of this stool, another part, which we call employees. Your people who work with you to make everything work. And well, if you don't have a motivated staff, a motivated team, motivated employees, you will be very inefficient. You will produce bad parts, bad products. So the employees would say, well, who is most important? We are most important because we make it for you, right? So without employees, you would not go anywhere either. So each of those legs, each of those components, customers, investors, employees, they all are right that they are all most important. So do you have to choose? No, you don't. You have to choose. You have to say, yes, I need all three parts being successful. So that's why it's so important to focus on all three, on the customer, the investors, and the employees. Without the customers, you have no business. Without the investors, you have nobody to finance you, to invest in your company. And without the employees, without your team, you're not going to make it happen either. So a leg represents that. It's like three legs. Sometimes when somebody says the employees are the most important thing, then maybe that leg is very strong. But if the other two legs are shorter, then the stool is not balanced. Right? The stool is not balanced, it would tip. You cannot sit on it. If the customer says, if you focus only on the customer and you say quality number one and quality is the only thing, and of course it is an important part of it. But if quality is so strong, but you don't make any money, the investors are not going to support you and nobody will be happy about not making any money. So that leg will be shorter and you won't be balanced. So you will not be able to sit on that stool. So the bottom line is you need a balanced business and you do need to focus on all three of those components. The investors who want an investment to give him a better investment. You need the customer who wants a product for a better price than anyone else. And you need your employees. They want to work in a work environment which is better than anywhere else where they are happy and can get their satisfaction. So your job as a manager, it doesn't matter which level you are. If you are if you are a supervisor, if you are a production worker, or if you are the general manager or the CEO, your job is to satisfy all three elements, all three legs of the stool in order to have a balanced business. Now, there will be times when there is one leg a little bit stronger and maybe a little bit shorter, but you need to balance that out over time. And because if you don't, your business will tip and it will, crumble and it will not be successful. So that's in a way, an important part, what I see.
Well, whoever tuned into this podcast, I know there's someone out there right now that's going to think differently just off that. That's awesome.
Do you still have the actual stool?
I do.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember seeing it.
I do have it. I have it in my basement. I should bring it. You can take a picture.
Yeah, I think when I think about that, it provided us with some real good vision and insight to how to run the business. So I think that vision of having the three-legged stool definitely supported us more than I realized back when I was in the plant. So it's really good.
That's great. Yeah, it is if you use the stool, the three-legged stool, it's like a easy way of seeing what the meaning behind it, that you need a balance in your business. And it really doesn't matter what business you have. I know we are here focused on manufacturing, but the same thing applies for a bank. It applies for a shopping mall. It applies for my daughter's family business of a spiritual tour company. It doesn't matter. This is the same principle for anybody. And you have to focus on those three things. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Well, that's a good spot to wrap it up. And we heard a lot about balance, and I hope that helps some of our listeners. So a lot of people are going to be curious on what's going on now, and we'll leave some of this in the show notes. But tell us a little bit more about your daughter's business and what you're working on now today, Horst.
Oh, yeah. I'm working with my daughter in supporting her. I'm actually supporting her in her business. She has a small business with focusing on organizing pilgrimages to different sacred sites around the world. And I'm doing all kinds of things, from carrying luggage sometimes for the guests, to the financial part, the business part of the business, to making hotel arrangements. So I'm really happy about that. And the most important thing is I can spend lots of time with her and support her. And it's really wonderful. It's one of those things what money cannot buy you. You know, that's like the experience I have. So I'm very happy.
Awesome. How about yourself, Scott? What are you up to these days?
Similar type of thing. I got to spend lots of time with my kids. They were in university at the time, so they were playing university sports. I got to see that, and that was pretty exciting and fun. And my wife runs a successful and progressive healthcare operation, so I bought a strip mall and renovated it and moved her business into that. Bought another couple buildings, renovated them. I like working with my hands, and I didn't really get the chance to do that while I was working. So I'm doing lots of physical things. I work out a lot. I try to mountain bike and road bike a lot, and try to squeeze in a golf game every once in a while.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And so I gotta go with my next question right to you, Scott. Is your first concert? What was your first concert?
Well, from what I can remember, I think it was Queen, and they're back again, right? They're still out there, obviously with a different lead singer, but from what I remember, it was Queen.
That's awesome.
And if you're stuck on one island, and you can only bring a collection from one artist, you can bring all their music, what artist are you taking with you?
Well, as a Canadian, I would want a Blue Rodeo or a Tragically Hip, but if I was on that island for a long time, I would probably want Van Morrison.
Good choice.
How about you, Horst?
Yeah, my first concert, I had to think about that. I think it was a long time ago. And I believe it was Fetched Dominoes. I don't know if anybody knows him.
Awesome.
He's like a old
Yeah.
jazz legend. No, I saw him live in Graz in Austria, where I grew up. I was a teenager at that time, I think. But in the meantime, I enjoy more classical music. I go in Vienna every year at the Christmas concert, Christmas in Vienna. I love that. That's also brings me to what music would I love on an island if I were there. It would be either Mozart or Johann Strauss, one of those two.
Two great Austrians.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's awesome. Well, Mike and I just want to take this moment to thank you guys. We're doing great things today, and you two had a personal impact on that and so many other people. It's just I always say this to everyone, is that never underestimate the power of influence you have on others, regardless of position. And you guys you had both. You had the position but then you also had the connection with people that last today. And I think this podcast will really be helpful for some reminders and really touch people as you have with Mike and I. So.
Yeah, sorry. We really appreciate the time you guys taking to do this. And, you know, the feedback from some of the listeners basically has been very positive, and they love hearing your voices. So thanks again, and really appreciate you doing this.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. And come in next week and you'll hear Scott's episode where we'll talk more about his journey. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the time and joining us today. We had so much fun. Please remember to subscribe. It's free. Share it with colleagues. Look for our next episode in a couple weeks.
If you want to drive results, the first step is realizing how you show up.
That's the essence of mindfulness in manufacturing.